Okay, what I want to show you is how we operate a transponder. This is a very, very old-fashioned transponder in Golf Kilo India Alpha Bravo. You won't come across one like this in a glider, I don't think, not least because it's so old-fashioned, but also because it takes up too much of the instrument panel space. Put my hand next to it, you can see how big it is. It's very easy to operate because it's very mechanical. The selection of the squawk is just by twiddling these knobs. So when we first switch the engine on, or we first set off, we put it in standby mode. I've always thought of that as warming up the bits inside, but I don't think that's actually the case. But when we're actually about to take off and when we're flying, we actually want it to be responding to interrogation by secondary surveillance radar. So when we have it in the on position, then it operates in mode alpha. So mode alpha means that if interrogated by a signal from a secondary surveillance radar, it will give them back our squawk code, in this case 7000. That's the squawk for conspicuity. It just makes us glow on the screen, if you like. It indicates that we're not talking to any particular air traffic service provider. We're just flying around, and squawk 7000 means that we're not tuned into any frequency, but you can see us on your radar. It doesn't give any other information. When we're flying round, it's preferable to have it on mode alpha and Charlie. So we turn it round to the alt setting, and it also then transmits our altitude. In fact, I think it probably more likely transmits our flight level. It kind of assumes that the air pressure is 1013, but it's doing the same thing for all the other transponders that are being interrogated by the secondary surveillance radar. So it can indicate whether the controller's got a separation between us and another aircraft. So most of the time we want it on mode Charlie, which is the setting that says alt next to it. So when interrogated, it gives them back our squawk code, and it also gives them back our level, our flight level, our altitude in a way. If we want to set another frequency, another transponder code, we usually just switch it back to standby. And if it were talking to Humberside, for example, their squawk codes always begin 427. Easiest way to get to 7 is back from 0. The biggest number on here is a 7. Biggest digit you can have is a 7. And the usual squawk code that they give you is either 4271 or 4272, 4273 for the next aircraft, 4274 for people who are just passing by. Aircraft that are actually going in and approaching will have a different set of squawk codes, all starting with 42, but not necessarily in the 70 series. And then when we've set that, we set it back to, first of all, on and then alt, and then it's transmitting that squawk code. We appear on the radar with that next to us, and it's also transmitting our flight level. So that's the main workings of one of these simple old-fashioned transponders. But occasionally, if the air traffic controller's got a lot of transponding aircraft on the radar screen, might not be able to spot you, so sometimes they ask you to squawk ident. So all that means is that we press this button, we just press it and release it. We glow, if you like, on this radar screen for a few seconds so that they can spot which one's us, and then it goes off again. So you just need to touch it to switch it on, and then you glow for a few seconds and it goes off again. You don't need to keep your finger on it. Another thing that is important is sometimes the squawk, the electronics don't quite do what they're supposed to be doing. Wait for this aircraft to go by. So So sometimes the controller will ask you to recycle the transponder or recycle your squawk. All that means is switch it off and switch it back on again. A good old tried and tested method that works with computers and all sorts of things. So you've got ident and recycle squawk, two things that we could be asked to do. I'll show you in a different video a more up-to-date one, a transponder that you're more likely to see in a glider with a smaller footprint on the instrument panel. This is the transponder in Golf Bravo Tango Whiskey Delta. It's the typical transponder that you'll find in a glider as well as a motor glider. It takes up not much space on the instrument panel. It does extend a fair distance back though into behind the instrument panel. Lots of people who fly cross country have got this sort of fit. The transponder itself is linked to the master switch arrangement, so at the moment the master switch is on. The radio switch actually also puts the power to the transponder, but it's off at the moment. So once you've started the engine, we would normally switch the transponder to the SBY standby setting, and if you're at an airport or somewhere like that, we would switch it after that to the ground setting. Actually, what it does when we put it in the ground setting is it transmits, when it's interrogated, our mode S signal. So our mode S is it's got the transponder is registered to York Gliding Centre. It's registered, it's associated with Golf Whiskey Delta, so anybody seeing that return on a ground radar screen will know that it's Golf Bravo Tango Whiskey Delta, it belongs to York Gliding Centre, and they can probably track it as it trundles around Heathrow Airport or somewhere like that. So it's not so important for us in a glider or a motor glider to actually use that ground function, but it's there for the sort of more sophisticated aeroplanes to use at airports. But ground is a good place to put it. It's transmitting mode S only. When we're in the air, we want it to be transmitting our squawk and also our flight level. So if we put it to the on position, then in the on position it's transmitting this transponder code, which is 7000. That's the transponder code for conspicuity. Just says, yes, we're here. You can see that we're squawking conspicuity. We're not listening to anybody in particular, so it's no good talking to us. And because we've not got it on mode Charlie, that's the only information that can be derived. If we want to be more useful, then we'll turn it to the alt position, and the alt position will mean that it transmits our flight level as well. So it kind of measures our height but assumes that the pressure setting for the day is 1013. So it can only give 2 digits. That's indicating about 100 feet. I'm sitting here on the ground at Rougheth. We're actually at 65 feet, so 65 rounds up to 100 feet. So that's why it thinks we're at 100 feet. So flight level 0, 1. So at the moment in the alt position, it's transmitting our mode S information. In other words, who owns the aircraft, where it's registered to, which aircraft it is. It's transmitting the transponder code 7000, and it's transmitting our flight level. So mode Sierra, mode Alpha and mode Charlie are all working at the same time. So it might, on some transponders, you get an indication saying ACS. It's Alpha, Charlie and Sierra at the same time. With this particular one, we have a different method for setting the transponder code. We can't set one up in advance as we can do on the radio. So what we have to do is turn it back to standby, turn this knob, and let's say we want the listening squawk for Leeds Bradford Airport, which is 2677. With the first knob, we dial that back to 2. We then press enter, and we can dial that up to 6, the next number to 6. Press enter, it goes to the next digit. We want 7, so biggest number you can get is 7. So if you just go down 1, it'll go to 7, and then again, and we get 7. And that's all now set up. So if we want that to become live, we put it on, and that's mode alpha, out, and we've got mode Charlie as well. So it's transmitting our flight level, there's the out symbol there, and our squawk 2677. Notice that it also has our call sign there, Golf Bravo Tango Whiskey Delta. That's associated with the mode S facility. If we've been flying around on that and we want to change back to conspicuity, there's a shortcut on here, because the shortcut is just to press the VFR button, and it goes back to the VFR conspicuity code, which is 7000, just in one go, so you don't have to fiddle around with it. And just as on the other transponder that you might have seen, we have an ident button, IDT, ident. So if we're at a squawk ident, we just press that, and it makes our symbology glow a little bit more brightly on the radar screen, or whoever's watching us at the time. So just a slightly different method of entering the squawk codes. And I think the smaller ones, the smaller cross section, the ones with the transponders with the smaller space, if you like, on the instrument panel, they tend to have this sort of method of entry where you've only got one knob and you just go from number to number, because there's not space on the instrument panel for 4 or 5 different knobs. So that's the end of the video. You know about a couple of transponders. If you get in an aeroplane, it's got a different sort of transponder or a different sort of radio, then to sit in it and spend some time getting to know its functions. It's probably easier to do that than to read the instruction manual.